Onegaishimasu. So tonight, or this morning for those of you in Europe, we are going to be discussing chapter 4, the key development exercises, or Kino Taiso Ho. We practice 3 different types of Aiki Taiso, or key exercise. And I'll give you a little bit of history. So, there was really no set of exercises back in the day to practice by yourself. So Toi Sensei saw this when he first came to Maui. When he came to Hawaii, he was teaching Aikido, and he realized after returning that, wow, I've taught him a bunch of techniques. And when he went back again the second time, he noticed that they had turned what he had taught them into something super physical with no relaxation, none of the 4 basic principles. So he developed the Aiki Taiso, and those Aiki Taiso exercises are basically a play on, how to help you with your techniques. So he taught that like the first, times he came to Hawaii, and they actually adopted it at the Aikikai, and they would do these warm-ups, and that's what we call Aiki Taiso. And most dojos do them before class, at the beginning, after they stretch, they usually do a form of Aiki Taiso, then they start teaching the regular techniques. That's normally what they do. And specifically, Toi Sensei realized, he taught these exercises to everyone. Then when he came back to Hawaii again, he had noticed that they had turned these exercises into something super hardcore martial, really tense, full of physical power. And he said, they're not practicing what I designed them to be. Yes, they're good practice once you know how to keep one point, and you know the 4 basic principles, and you know how to relax, but this really isn't what I'm after. So then shortly after that, he created Tuitsu Taiso, which is what in the West we call 3-minute exercises. And that's set to, a series of exercises with, different exercises to promote, the 4 basic principles. But yet again, people turn those into a martial thing with counting and precision, and it defeated the whole purpose. So Toi Sensei then said, let's evolve this a little bit more. Let's turn this into what is called Relaxation Tyso, or Oneness Rhythm Tyso. So the first time I did this, our class at the college would do 3-minute exercises, and then right after that we do, Relax Taisho, and it was all to counting, each Nissan Shi. There was no music involved. So it turned again into this hardcore precision martial art form of exercise. And then we were introduced to the music. And like everybody else who first heard that music went, what the hell is going on here? This is not martial arts. This is not what I signed up for. And it's really interesting because I, like everyone else, when I heard the music, I went, oh, I rolled my eyes. Oh, brother, what's this? And, this was back a long time ago when we had a cassette player. We put the cassette in and light off that music, and then people just kind of roll their eyes and go through the motions and really not do what we were designed to do. And that was a couple things, it was because, the teaching had not progressed. This was a new thing developed in Japan. It was done very formally under Toy Sensei's tutelage. But then, of course, as the chief instructors brought it back, different chief instructors had different understandings of it. So some of them pushed the music, then others didn't on the music. They continued counting. And, I remember complaining to Curtis Sensei, oh, brother, come on, Sensei. What's up with the music? It's horrible. And he looked at me and said, listen, what is it in you? What does that music bring up in you? Do you think you're doing something special here? Do you think you're doing a martial art here? What is it? What is it, Tracy? Tell me. And I couldn't figure it out. I was just like, and then he kind of, I was, Curtis Sensei was really, I was one of those students who wasn't afraid to voice my opinion in front of many people. In one way, he could have really shut me down, and it kind of, he could have embarrassed me, but he didn't. That was one thing Curtis Sensei was really, really good at. For reasons unknown to me, he took kind of attention to me and took me off to the side, said, Tracy, listen, I asked Toy Sensei that same question that you're asking me, and he told me Relaxation Tyso and the music is a secret weapon. Those who understand this understand my teaching. So I was like, oh, okay. Let's reconsider the music, because I was definitely an anti-music kind of guy. So I did. I began listening to it, and then as I started going to Japan and taking the classes with Sawai Sensei and learning more and more about it, I kind of said, "Oh yeah, I realized, yeah, okay, this is what it's about. It's about learning how to move in a relaxed manner, learning to move not only with precision, but relaxed, because that's the whole point of all Aikido techniques. You can't move when you're really stiff, you have to be relaxed, you have to be fluid. And the one thing, that a lot of people don't know is that, and you see this a lot when some of the more senior students are teaching how to pass a key test, or how to do the different perform. I don't want to say how to pass a key test, but how to perform a key test, how to manifest the different positions so that they're natural. And a lot of people who are more senior teach it in a way that they don't just say, put out your arm. When you put out your arm, they'll say, okay, do it once and then do it twice. And Toy Sensei was really big on teaching this way, each knee, and then you take a physical movement and then move first with your mind, then with your body. Hence, just like athletes do, they're basically doing the thing mentally first and then performing it, So that was super important to Toy Sensei teaching, anything on how to teach body movement. First, do it twice, and then do it with rhythm. Those are the 2 points that really are emphasized in the 3-minute exercise, as well as Relaxation Tyso. We do the move twice, so that if you don't know how to, physically move so well the first time, then your mind kind of gets a picture of it, and then you can re-simulate it. So that was something that, I learned from practicing these exercises. Now in Maui, we do the 3-minute exercise before every weapons class. We do Relaxation Tyso basically before all the Aikido classes. After we've done our stretching, we do Relaxation Tyso, and then we do the Aiki Tyso. So it's kind of in progression. You know, there's a set progression to Toi Sensei's teaching, and this is fundamentally one of the basic things every student needs to know. Every student needs to learn Relaxation Tyso, 3-minute exercise, and Aiki Tyso. And if your dojo's not doing it, that's why we have this manual, so you can kind of get an idea. And they've even, you know, there's so I Sensei did videos of Relaxation Tyso, and I think there might be even a video of 3-minute exercise in the Soden tapes. But yeah, those are super important. So what I like to do is just open it up with what your understanding, you know, any questions you may have about these exercises. Of course, we can't perform them, and teaching them over Zoom is out of my league. So I figure we can talk about them a little bit. I can give you some suggestions. Of course, the manual's there for you guys to go over. Um, yeah, I think, you know, understanding the history behind it is important, and learning, you know, why we do these things, you know, why we didn't throw them out. In fact, you know, it's got to the point now where Shinichi Sensei has confidence in everybody teaching them that of the chief instructors, that he no longer mandates the music anymore. He's like, oh yeah, now you know how to move relaxing. Really don't need that music to wash you off. Although the music is very good for beginners, but I would say if you are not familiar with counting, it's good to count along with the music. Therefore, you get an understanding of the rhythm, because that's super important in relaxation Tyso, you know. So who would like to start? Anyone like to volunteer, or I can just ask people? It's just a small class. Gloria, you're there, you're smiling, and you got a kick out of it when you said I didn't like the music.
Um,
How are you tonight?
well, the music didn't bother me. Even it's not great music, you know, and everybody understands that. But the idea was to help people. It's not. It's a little hokey, but um, it was to help people understand the kind of rhythm, and it's also the rhythm that he wants in our movements, and when we're doing um, yeah, when we're doing uh, things with each other, you know, when we're doing the arts. And so it's very basic to our whole training. And that was explained to me from the very beginning, that that was the whole purpose of it. So I never had a problem with it. Becoming graceful doing it is another thing, and now that took a while, but you know, and just kind of intuitively being able to do the rhythm takes a while, so that you aren't rushing, because that's the main thing people do, is just rush through it.
Yeah, I'd agree there. A lot of people like to rush techniques, especially when they're performing a test. You know, they like to rush. I don't know. They have a misunderstanding that they think if I do it fast enough, you won't see my holes, my errors, my mistakes. You know, where I'm always a fundamental of doing it really slow. Any technique you do it slow, do it smooth, and then once you have it down super smooth, then you can go at any speed you desire. And it's really important to be able to slow things down, or I even break things down by number. You know, one move, two move, three, so that way you have an idea of if you're moving correctly with with uh, with mind body unification. So, Gloria, do you have any stories about relaxation Tyso, or 3-minute exercise, or Aiki
Well,
Tyso?
not really. I've you know, watched the video, practiced with it, and I'm not sure how many people still have the video to teach us how to do it. Lillian looks like she has. So we used that for a while, and we played the music, and then they said stop playing the music, and it's been a little off and on. But right now it's music off. So um,
Well, I think it's not necessarily music off. I think it's optional, music
yeah.
optional.
Well, actually, Nonaka Sensei was teaching the class one day when Warrior Sensei had to be gone, and he brought some pop music, or I think, you know, rock music at the right tempos. And it's hard to find rock music at that tempo, but you know, showing that we could do the relaxation Tyso to those, and not the kind of uh, sort of canned music that the people came up with, that Tohei Sensei asked to write music for it.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of that music.
It's,
That
it's
I would say was not approved. That's unapproved music there for you.
Yeah, but a little bit of fun.
Sure, it's all good and fun, uh, but that to demonstrate that kind of stuff. But I get it. And there was a teacher I know that went out and did different music to the same rhythm and kind of tried to promote that, to other people. But it's really not needed. I mean, you don't need that. That's a distraction, in my opinion. You know,
Well, an awful
you
lot of people can't move to music. They really have terrible coordination with music. They don't uh, internalize what they hear with their movements. And as a lifelong musician, I watch people and wonder how they can be that way. But then if I try to do some other things, I'm probably as clumsy as they look to me. So, yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. There's a lot of people that have no rhythm when they dance. I'm probably one of them. And yeah, that's a big part of Aikido is rhythm and moving, correctly with relaxation, you know. Uh, this when I was reading some of Curtis Sensei's book and then going over some notes that I had from a class he taught, and this is practicing Fudo Shin, you know. These exercises is a way you can practice true Fudo Shin, Fudo Shin, immovable mind, because it's all, movement is really, keeping one point when you're sitting still is very easy, but once you start moving, it's a whole different matter. And learning to move with, 3-minute exercise or relaxation Tyso will allow you to move correctly in just your Aiki Tyso, you know, transition that way, and even the first move of relaxation Tyso, that very first move, the one that you only do an 8 count with dropping your arms and your 1 point, that is, I mean, I've I remember we used to. I got this from headquarters. I was asking Sayaka, and I said, "Oh, Sayaka," I said, I was asking her, of course, her input on relaxation Tyso, what it is, how they practice it, and they said, "Oh, well, what we do on the side is we got this back then, I would say, secret teaching from one of the instructors there, and they'd play the relaxation Tyso music, and they would only do that exercise, one exercise the entire time." So that was something I really grasped a hold of back in the day and really started doing that with. I do that by myself. I do that with my friends for training purposes, and we do that in a class. When I would teach class, sometimes I would pull this out, and we do the whole thing, and then everyone's going, "Oh, my legs and their calves would be screaming because they hadn't done it so long, that same exercise over and over and over again." I got a lot of fun out of doing that. It was a form of torture that I enjoyed. I don't recommend it, but it was fun for me. So, what do you think there, John? John had a question for me earlier. He's like, "Oh, Trace, I don't understand about this." I was like, "Save it for the class." "Oh, you're not going to tell me now?" I'm like, "No."
Well, that question was basically, why do we swing our arms for ude furi waza? I mean,
why do we swing our arms in anything? Okay, so I think, there's a lot of Okay, so Aiki Tyso is set up for Aikido techniques, specifically 9. I mean, you can go to Aikigai dojos, see them do Aiki Tyso similar to how we do it. Of course, there's little variations, and other instructors put on their own little deal, but similar, specifically designed for that. Relaxation Tyso, 3-minute exercise, are done to warm your body up. using the 4 basic principles. So mobility is a big deal. Being able to move in twisting, turning ways, a lot of our Aikido techniques call for that. They call for, moving in such a way that your body is not maybe used to doing it. And I've had, students come to the beginner class and they go, oh my God, I'm sore in places I didn't know I had. And that's because they weren't used to moving their body in such a way. And learning how to just, I remember Suzuki Sensei hammering me over, and I don't mean, hammering me in such a way of just correcting me, of, just on how I lifted my arms. He came by and hit my shoulders and said, Riesner, I'm going to teach you how to lock your shoulders. And he's hitting my shoulders, down because I was lifting my shoulders anytime I raised my hands. So it's just being able to move, think about, moving your body in ways that aren't coordinated. So that's why we're teaching all these different moves in Relaxation Tyso. They may be similar to some of the Aiki Tyso exercises for sure, but they're not so much designed. They're more fluid. They're more, in a way, sometimes they're more the motion of maybe a technique and just, oh, why do we do this specific thing? Well, flexibility and range of motion. We have to have those types of things to really do a lot of the Aikido techniques, So does that answer your question, John? You thought it was something, why are we doing this? Because I don't see this in any of the techniques. Right? Because you're worried about the techniques.
Right.
When you should be keeping one point while moving your body.
Yes. Hi, Sensei.
Anything else, John?
As far as comments, I wanted to say I love the Rhythm Tyso music.
Oh, you like it? Yeah, there's some people that like it. It's very Japanese. I call it very Japanese music, The Japanese have there's such an interesting culture, and that culture's fed off into the different things, where you see, it's one culture that they have accepted the modernity, the modern stuff, and combined it with stuff that's really old and ancient, in certain ways, like, imagine, Shinichi Sensei's teaching a Zoom seminar next month. And he's teaching a Zoom seminar and he has people moving around and he does it in the dojo and teaches different things. And it's really quite interesting how he's, accepted the modernity of teaching Aikido and different movement exercises via Zoom. We're not quite that advanced yet, but maybe someday. So, Paiva Sensei, you're sitting there nodding your head.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Sensei. This is just bringing back a lot of memories. In our dojo, I had the music. I had the DVDs. I had the music. But upstairs, our electricity isn't the best. So I burned out a couple of DVDs trying to play the music. So I went to counting right away because I didn't want to burn down my dojo. But I do have two things I'd kind of like to share. One was, I think it was in 2001 that Sawai Sensei did a lot of Oneness Rhythm classes. And we did a lot of just that first movement, down, down, down. And man, it was a thigh killer. And that was the year that everybody had ordered something from camp. And you guys asked me to carry like this 20-pound bag back to the Hilo dojo for them because nobody from Hilo was able to make it that year. And I just remember going up the steps at those train stations with my thighs just dying from doing that first, rhythm music and the 20-pound bag of books that I was carrying. So it was very good training. And so Weiss Sensei, she was amazing when she was teaching the seminars because I have bits of dance background. So sometimes I can do some of this pretty keiko. And she came up to me at one point, we were doing this one exercise, and the movement itself felt correct. And her English, she didn't have a whole lot of English. And she came up to me, she moved me from the elbows. And it was the second exercise, I think. Anyway, and she came over and she did it with me. And it was just amazing, the difference. So that was such a valuable lesson, aside from a Killer Thigh weekend. And then the other thing I like to do is every few years, the last class of the year at the dojo, when we do our omiki and the parents come and everything else, our kids always do demos. And sometimes the parents don't know what it is the kids are learning. So I have the kids do the Oneness Rhythm, and then I make the parents get up and follow them and have to try and follow the movement. And it's been very enlightening for families. So, but it's all great. I love it, and yes, as soon as you said the music was very Japanese, that's how it strikes me, very Japanese. But I'm glad you're doing this chapter. Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, it's interesting, so Wai Sensei was a professional dancer, and she would specifically teach these Oneness Rhythm Tyso classes in the Tenshin Gyosho, which was the hardwood floor dojo on the across the road. And so I, remember going to those, and they were so precision oriented, basically knee goes here, elbow here, they were super, super intense when it came to, where your movement, where your body should be. And yeah, I think I learned a lot from that, and it helped me intensively. I remember being at an all Japanese seminar, right? So I went to Japan and took a seminar there, and nobody else. I was the only American at the place, right? And they had of course, it's all in Japanese, and Maki Sato was very nice and sat next to me and translated every class. And she was the international person, if you don't know. And we get into we called the Tenshin Gyosho. I called it the Gaijin torture chamber because it was a hardwood floor. There was you had to sit seiza on the hardwood floor. And then they brought in these little thin pillows because they thought, Americans might not be able to handle it. You wore a tracksuit, everyone had a black tracksuit, and you had to have white socks, I think. I don't know. You weren't allowed to have black socks. You had to wear white socks. And we went there, and I'm the only foreigner there. Swai Sensei's doing this class, and then suddenly she calls to one of the Ushideshis that was there, brings him up, and then goes, "Oh, this totally relates to Shomenuchi Kokyunage," and starts throwing this guy on the hardwood floor, and the guy's doing break falls left and right. She's just splatting him on the place. Everyone was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Wow, they didn't do that in any of the American classes. I can tell you that." They did them in the Japanese classes, and they were all young. That's why they wouldn't break. They were made out of rubber. They were just bouncing everywhere on that hardwood floor. But I just remember that being I was like, "Wow, that's really fun looking," because she would totally relate stuff, some of the exercises directly to the Aikido techniques, and that was always fun. So, Kayomi, how are you tonight?
Oh, doing well, Sensei. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I only probably experienced 3-minute exercise because when I was Boya Sensei was teaching on Tuesday, he showed us how to do it, and I really enjoy it. I can't remember everything, but I sometimes do it in my apartment. And then Naluai Sensei taught me a little bit at the beginning of some kind of exercise, or like doing this, or like circling arms. And about so I don't know much about it, but about music, I think I probably will enjoy, because I'm so used to doing radio exercise since I was very small. So I do everything twice, and you just have to do it, like when, as far as I remember, I started probably 3 or 4 years old. So it
Right.
probably doesn't bother me. And
Radio Tyso.
yeah, Relaxation Tyso. Yes, I will like that. And then I have one question about the exercising. I would love to see other exercises in the future when the dojo opens. But when you said when you exercise, you have to unify mind and body. What does that mean? Do you think of one point all the time while you are exercising? Or how do you keep that one point?
It all starts with your posture, having correct posture and moving from your one point. And that's something, you have to be shown more so than I can tell you. It's a physical thing, and moving, posture is super important, standing posture, and then starting from that basic area of standing correctly and then being able to move correctly is another thing. So yeah, but you mentioned radio Tyso, the Tyso, because I was talking to Sayaka and she was telling me, she's like, oh yeah, they were required to do these Tyso, very general Tyso, very similar. They were required as homework, like when they go on breaks and they'd play the music at the same time on the radio, and they'd listen to it, and they'd all have to do the exercises. So that's what you mean when you were used to doing that from such a small age. Is that correct there, Kiyomi?
Yes. And I haven't forgotten, actually. So you never forget. I haven't done it for years, but you remember. As soon as the music starts, I can start doing it. So
right.
It's just ingrained in me already. I think it's all Japanese people.
Yeah, and Sayaka's grandfather, who's still alive, he's like 90 some odd years old, he would go with his senior citizen friends. They'd go to the park, and they would when the music would come on the radio, boom, everybody in the park is doing the exercises. I mean, it's a whole fun, it's basically the country, it's like a mandate, a political mandate almost, for all the people in Japan to be exercising. They do it in the factories, and they do it in the schools, and they do it in the parks, just to develop their health. I think that's a really good thing. And to my sense, they just kind of modified it.
Yeah, and interesting is you have never seen anyone, doing so intensely. Everybody is relaxed, so maybe that's why at the beginning, music will help to relax.
Right. Leave it to the Americans to neutralize stuff.
Thank you.
We'll make it a universal thing. Thank you, Kiyomi. That's really good. Yeah, it's good to share that information. So, Vitaly, do you practice key exercises?
Yes. Hello, Sensei. Hello, everybody. Yes, certainly. I practice key exercises. I have some interesting story with relaxation Tyso exercises and the music, as you said. Earlier, I thought that the music during the relaxation Taiso exercises is exclusively for the rhythm. And now I understand that it's for relaxation, not only for the rhythm, but for relaxation as well. And the story is the next room from our dojo is music class. And sometimes during our class, Aikido classes, we listen to the music, different kinds of music. And it's quite loud. And if this music we listen during our Aikido techniques, we perform them differently from one music to another type of music, and this is very interesting. And I understand that Aikido is more dancing than martial art. In martial art, we have two persons. One person wants to hit another, and other person wants to resist for the first person. And Aikido, we have two partners. All of them, they two doing the same thing, the same movement and coordination. That is why I think that Aikido is more dancing than martial art. That is the story. That's
a good story. You know, when a lot of, back when they used to have the Tai demonstrations, they would demonstrate these different Tais, we would play, the music and do the Kite Taigi to it. Me and my friends, when we were practicing to do the Kite Taigi, we would put in the music, listen to it, and then just start doing the techniques here and there, to the rhythm of that music. And yeah, of course, it was helpful. It helped us learn to move a little more gracefully, and to move more from. It allowed us to give us something to hear, to help us with the rhythm, the internal rhythm, our internal rhythm in our body. Instead of us just kind of doing it physically, it was give us something to listen to help us move. Because the way, the Relaxation Tyso was modeled, it had different pauses to transition to different things. And that allowed us to kind of develop that transition. It's kind of like when Curtis Sensei on Sunday was talking about key breathing, and he said the very important part is that transition, that pause between breaths, and that's what you emphasize. You don't emphasize the inhale or the exhale, but you just kind of that transition. Developing that transition is super important, and that's kind of what the music allowed us to do when we were first learning the different Taisos, first learning the different exercises. So that was also very helpful. So I can see that point there. Yeah, Toi Sensei was very big on saying Aikido is not a martial art. Aikido is Budo. That's different than a martial art. So, Fincher, you're here. So we're talking about Chapter 4, Key Development Exercises. And we talked about a little bit about the history, about Aiki Taiso, Tuitsu Taiso, the 3-minute exercise, and of course, Oneness Rhythm Tyso.
And just commenting on that, I'm not sure where to start.
Do you have any comments, questions?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do have a question. They don't perform that in their training routine in Japan anymore?
They do. They don't. It's it's something that I think Shinichi Sensei doesn't emphasize so much, but it's there. And I remember Kuro Sensei and Shinichi Sensei talking about it, and he said, "Yes, please continue to teach it. Please continue to do it. It is very important."
Yeah. I'd have to reflect on the classes in Japan and how specific they were, and how much of a transition you actually had to consciously make to bring that relaxed motion into your arts. It wasn't that easy, because the rhythm of you know of those exercises, they kind of, with the music, they kind of carry themselves along, and so you're kind of carried along with it. And to take that, I just remember taking that and trying to move in the same way in the arts really exposed what you were doing in your art, improperly, the tension that you held, and just the I guess the attachment to throwing the person to more of the martial arts end of your mindset, and to bring that into the arts really requires you to transition to a different perspective. I just recall that really being kind of fascinating. I guess that's what it was made for, yeah. Just to take a look at this, and then take a look at how you're doing the arts, and somehow, match the two. Obviously, but that was the main thing that really, when I first, really started getting instruction in Japan on the Relaxed Tyso.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember those classes. You were there with Sawai Sensei.
Yeah.
In the Tenshin Gyosho. Great, thanks. How about Ilaria? How are you tonight there, Ilaria?
Hi, Sensei, I'm well. I wanted to say that I saw Paiva Sensei raised her hand a little earlier. She might have had something else to say.
I didn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, a little bit better, yeah.
Okay. I saw Paiva Sensei raise her hand a little earlier, so she might have had something more to say.
Oh, I didn't see that. Paiva Sensei, raised your hand.
I'll just interrupt a second. It's not important. It was actually when Kayomi was talking about the radio exercises. I was just going to mention that when I worked for Four Seasons, Kajima Corporation, which is of course the #1 Japanese construction company, Japan country, built our Four Seasons over here. And I was with the landscape company, and we had to do that radio exercise before we went to work every day. So it was pertinent when Kayomi was talking about it. Not so much right now, but thank you, Ilaria.
That's great. They even brought the exercises to the Big Island to do that. That's great. You're so dedicated. So, Ilaria, we're on to you.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. It was interesting at the beginning of class to hear a different perspective on just the Oneness Rhythm Tyso music, because I guess I was doing it from such a young age that I took it for granted that it's weird. And then when I was older, I kind of had a moment where I was like, this is kind of odd. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this class, just learning about more of the history behind these exercises and why they were invented, and the specifics you went into on like the purposes of them, and about learning how to move your body in ways that we aren't used to, and things like that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you know, one thing that everyone says, regardless, and I've read many books from Aikikai teachers to, of course, Ki Society teachers, and they all say the same thing, that Toi Sensei was a master teacher. You know, he could really demonstrate as well as explain things, even in English. You know, think about, you know, one American was saying the way he explains things in English. Think about how he must be able to explain things to Japanese people, because that's his original language, and how well he could transition that and bring out the best in anybody. You know, no matter what. It's like when he would teach something, he could bring somebody up and then they'd be like, wow, I can do it now. And of course, there's the people who they wouldn't leave his presence till they could do it, because he would torture them endlessly until they could do it, because it was important for him, you know, to be able to transition that, you know, from you know, doing something, you know, slowly, smoothly, to being able to do it regular speed and do it correctly. So yeah, I get that. So yeah, when you look at these exercises and see how he, you know, from a very, you know, beginning phases developed the Aiki Taiso, then the 3-minute exercise, and then on to the Relaxation Tyso, was, you know, to see that, how that developed was super, it's super good to see how he thought of things and what he was trying to teach to bring it out the best in everybody. So Murta, how are you tonight? I see you there.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sensei. We do not do the 3-minute exercises where I'm from. I don't know them. I saw the video of the rhythm exercise, but I haven't practiced them. So for me, this is all a bit unknown. And I'm afraid you cannot show what it's about. So I just enjoy the stories.
Yeah, where's your dojo? Who do you train with in Europe?
I train in Amsterdam, and I am from the Key Federation of Great Britain, and it's different there. Some things are not done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes to show you that's not uncommon. Not uncommon at all. That, you know, when certain chief instructors go to headquarters, some chief instructors pick and choose what they want to teach and what they don't want to teach, and that's an example right there. A lot of people, you know, didn't like Relaxation Tyso, so therefore it didn't get transmitted. So I think that goes to the importance of a couple things. One is train with other teachers to get a different perspective, and try to go to Japan if you can, to get it right from the horse's mouth, you know, right from headquarters. Of course, we can't do that now, but eventually we will be able to do that. Maybe not next year or the year, maybe the year after, but you know, that's important. And I've always been one, and you know, Curtis Sensei's always been one to say, hey, train with whoever you want. That's good to do that. And I, you know, before I even moved to Maui, I had trained at probably close to 50 different dojos. And that was because I traveled in my work. And I would always bring my gi in my bag, and this dates me a little bit because it was before the internet, open up the yellow pages, look for an Aikido dojo in the phone book, and call them and go, hey, do you got class? And then a few years later, you know, Stanley Pranin developed. He had a book created and that had dojos could list their dojos in this book. And so there it was, in every state it had listed every dojo and it was everything from Ki Society to Aikikai to Yoshinkan to whatever was in that state or city. And I took full advantage of that and trained at all these different places Some places were really good, some places were not so good, but it really opened my eyes to what was out there and what was involved. Hence, that's why I moved to Maui. Linda Sasaki Sensei, how are you tonight? Talking about the relaxation. What was your experience with Relaxation Tyso and 3-minute exercises? Oh, you got to unmute yourself there. She's having a hard time. John, can you unmute her from your end, from the host end? Can you do the unmuting?
I'm requesting for her to unmute, but she's. If you swipe to the left, I believe. There you go.
Ah, there you are. Nice. We got it.
All I have is an iPhone.
I understand.
So the Sawai Sensei Oneness Rhythm? Are we speaking?
Yeah, I mean, you've been
Isn't there
around
a
before.
DVD out or something? Because I
Yeah,
have
there
it.
was.
I have one.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just the music, but you know, it's the one that Toy Sensei is sitting down and she's standing next to him.
Right.
So,
But you started before any of these exercises kind of came about. What was
yeah.
your experience with those?
When they first came out, it was, of course, you know, like everybody else, it was like, what the heck? But then, you know, they told us that it's like people are just so stuck in that mode of martial art. They think that everybody wants to become a Bruce Lee or something, and that's not what the goal of Toho Sensei's teaching was. It was actually for health reasons through a martial art, because he happens to be a martial art instructor, you know. I don't know if somebody can correct me on that, but that's what we were told, that he could see that it had a lot more, you know, meaning than just martial art. It was something that you could use every day in your life in any situation. And the Oneness Rhythm, I think the story I heard behind that was to get us to move with the union of mind and body coordination, and to smooth out our movements, you know. So actually, you know, Tracy, it was like when I started doing the Oneness Rhythm, I found out that not only did it kind of give me an added boost to mind and body coordination, but because the way that the exercises were kind of made, I learned to soft touch people. So when you apply the Aikido art and you give them a soft touch, they're like, why am I on the floor? Does anybody have that experience?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think that, do that again. I didn't get that. You know, Kurt Sensei talks about that, you know, a few times. That happened to him with Toy Sensei, and it's happened to me as well. Yeah.
I can remember Toy Sensei throwing me once, and all I felt was like his hand brushing my arm. And then I was 10 feet away, flat on my back, staring at the ceiling.
Right. Yeah, I think, learning to move. Yeah,
yes, and I thought that was an incredible soft touch. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we have this misunderstanding that we have to grab somebody physically hard to move them.
But you know, because it was so relaxing, and Sawai Sensei was very adamant about certain movements, where your hands have to be, how the rhythm goes. After a while, I mean, it looks, considering that you're Aikido, it looks really ridiculous when you're in the class and somebody outside is looking at it, because they're thinking, what is this? Is this dance of some sort? Is this what is that other exercise they do that has music and everything? But I think it really helped me because it was so relaxing, and I never knew what I was doing wrong until I had Sawai Sensei correct me. And one time I can remember we spent 20 minutes on one movement, just one movement, and nobody could move forward because we were all doing it wrong.
Right. Right. Yes, I was in that class.
But it made sense after, it felt weird in the beginning, but as you do it, and it made sense, your body was centered, it was balanced. But when I first did it, I felt embarrassed.
Oh, yeah. Self-conscious, everyone is, yes.
But I think I came away with a lot, and I still have the I haven't opened that DVD. It might be a DVD, it might be just music. And I came across it and I was thinking, God, I should stick this in my computer and see if it's just music, because do I still remember how to do this? Because how long has it been?
Yeah, like you said, it's something we can do every day. Yeah, you can do this,
But, coming back to the Aikido martial arts side, I found that doing the art was a lot more effective, because it's true. You're up against somebody who's kind of still in his right mind. When you have people who are on drugs or something, it's totally different. There is a rhythm, and that ability to soft touch somebody and move that person, together is really, it works. I'm happy just to get it, 3 times out of 5, but it works.
Right. Yeah, good. Is there anybody else? I think we called on everybody. Charlotte, Ladini, I don't know. Laura, you have your hand up. You'd like to say something else?
I just wanted to say, she was talking about soft touch, and this was not on the Aikido mat, but it was actually at a meeting. We were supposed to go around, everybody had 1 minute to talk about the business. It was a networking group. And the moderator, the president, started with the person on my left, went around, got to him, and he was ready to stand up and do the next thing. And I put my hand softly on his arm, and he went, and I went, oh. It was just, it just stopped him where he was. So and I went, oh, Aikido.
Nice. Great. Thank you guys so much. I didn't know we could get a full hour out of talking about key development exercises, but miraculously we can. This is good. So I'll close with a little story. Let me give you a preamble, because the story was kind of long, so I kind of condensed it down. So basically, this is from Takuan. Takuan was a Zen priest who was the Zen priest to Yakyu Munenori, the sword master to the emperor. And there was a gentleman who was performing tea, and he would go wherever his lord went. He would go with him to the different villages and perform tea. And his master thought he was such a great tea master that he allowed him to wear the same style kimono of a samurai. So after they performed the tea, they were going around town, and he sees these samurai walking towards him, and he politely gets off the sidewalk so they could pass, because he knew they were higher stature. but this one bold, kind of grumpy samurai kind of bumped into him and looked at him and said, started trouble with him. And said, why did you, bump into me? They were having a little bit of an argument, and he said, fine. He goes, meet me tomorrow, late evening, and we'll have a duel. Kind of called him out. So he's just standing there, and he's like, oh my God, this happened to me. So of course, he goes to Takawan, and he's like, this samurai guy thinks I'm a samurai because I'm wearing this outfit because my master told me to, but I'm actually just a tea guy. What do I do? Because he's called me out for a duel. He said, oh, well, I can teach you what you'll require. But first, I think perform the way of tea for me one last time. So just perform what you do at the tea ceremony so I can admire how you move. And he said, of course. The tea master agreed to the request, performing the rite with an inner peace and humility of a true master. When the tea ceremony was complete, the smiling samurai, as well as the Zen priest, Takawan, said, there you have it. There's no need to learn anything in the way of death. Your state of mind when you perform the tea ceremony is all that is required. You need just to hold your sword like you hold your teapot. Tea master couldn't comprehend how his respectful ceremony would prepare him for this battle. But he took the priest's words to heart and prepared for the next day. That following morning, when he met his opponent, the tea master performed exactly as the priest had instructed. The opposing samurai had expected to see a quivering wreck of nerves, but instead his eyes fell upon a quietly confident, unswerving opponent. In fact, thought that this was an entirely different man than the one he had encountered in the gutter yesterday. So awed was he by the man before him that he bowed respectfully, asked for forgiveness, and retreated from the battle without even raising a sword. The little tea master was, of course, celebrated for centuries as a symbol of inner strength, triumphing over sheer brawn. The tea master bested a trained warrior with nothing but the tranquility within himself that he had discovered through true Fudoshin. So I'll leave you with that. Next week, we'll be going over chapter 5. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimashita.